Good afternoon, everybody. This is Anthony with the Orange County Association of Realtors. Welcome you to our webinar today for the intro to zipForms. Just to talk a little bit about me as a quick introduction, just to get started. My name again is Anthony. I work here at the Orange County Association of Realtors. Been here now for coming up on 15 years. Started off in the MLS department, so I know guaranteed I'll speak to most of you, if not all of you, at some point in time regarding rules, regulations, violations, things like that. What I'm also involved with here at our association is our membership outreach program. Our outreach program is designed to give you various training on your tools and products. So not only do I train on MLS, how to run searches, how to modify listings, create CMAs, but I also train on the tablet device, which was last week's webinar, getting the basics on your tablet, meaning how to access MLS, how to do zipForms mobile, sign contracts, to what we're going over today, zipForms. Specifically, what we're going to focus on today in our zipForms is an introduction. So for those of you who are brand spanking new to the business, and you haven't logged into zipForms, that's okay. I'm going to go through some of those steps on how to register and create a user ID and password for your zipForms account. We're also going to go over a lot of the menu choices that are available to you. And in that, we're going to go over how to create a transaction, how to create a template, how to add in forms to a transaction, and where to go to begin digitally signing documents, which that will be in one of our later webinars scheduled for later this year on how to actually digitally sign. So are there any questions before we get started? And just want to make sure that everyone can hear me actually. No questions thus far. Excellent. Glad to hear that. Let's hop right onto the internet. Now, just super quickly, zipForms is a C.A.R. provided product, C.A.R. standing for California Association of Realtors, and this product allows you to create transactions by accessing online contracts, and this will allow you to fill in contracts on your computer. You can send them out via email to your clients for them to print out and sign, or even better yet, digitally sign those contracts, whereby you can utilize a few programs to send these contracts through to have your clients virtually sign them. So they don't have to print anything out. You don't have to necessarily print anything out, or even better yet, we don't have to take paper with us to our appointments. So how we access zipForms, very simply, we're just going to come to www.car.org. This is, again, the state website that you want to go to access your state-provided benefits. From here, if you're a brand new user to zipForms, what you want to do is move your mouse over to the right-hand corner where it says Sign In. When you click on Sign In, here you can input your username and password for zipForms or C.A.R.'s website, but if anybody here is a brand new user to zipForms, over here to the, and let me highlight this, to the right-hand side, you want to click on where it says Register. When you click on where it says Register, you're now going to follow a very easy four-step process. One, you're going to put in your NRDS number. Now, your NRDS number is provided to you by your association. In this case, if you're an Orange County member, when you joined Orange County, we gave you a little plastic card. On that little plastic card was your user ID for MLS and your NRDS number. Your NRDS number is politely referred to as your National Real Estate Data Systems number, or just a short acronym, NERDS. Now, if you're an Orange County member, this number is not necessarily your license. Again, this number is issued to you by your association. So when you join Orange County, on that little card, that number should begin with 2055 followed by 4 digits. Here you're going to input your NRDS number, 2055 followed by 4 digits. Now you're going to put in your legal last name, what's on your CalBRE license, and then when you hit Submit, you are then going to be prompted to create a username and password. Okay? In this case, I'm already a registered user, but in your case, you're going to go and create your own unique username and password. This is not necessarily the same username and password that you have for MLS. Now you can try to make that the same, but for over 250,000 agents here in the state of California, chances are you're probably going to have some similarities. Now, if that's, or in that case, you're going to need to come up with something very unique. I will say that when it comes to your username and password for CAR/zipForms, your username and password will be case sensitive, okay? So that means that it will recognize capital letters and lowercase letters and numbers along with the password, okay? So CAR's username and password will be required to have capital letters, numbers, combinations, things like that. And like everything else that we have to do each and every day, we have to have it in our password list. Create an Excel or a number spreadsheet, create your password list there, or if you use other systems like 1Password or LastPass, put your username and password in there as well. Now, once you create your username and password, you will be asked what association you belong to. You're going to click on the little drop-down arrow, and you're going to choose Orange County Association of Realtors here in the state of California. From there, once you click on that, it'll say, congratulations, you're ready to log in. Now, once you're ready to log in, back here on the home screen, if I can get back to that, let's see here. Let's refresh our screen. Back here at the home screen at CAR's website, to access your zip forms, just simply come over to the left-hand side in this big giant round circle where it says Access Zip Forms, Access Now. When you click on Access Now, you are now going to input your username and password that you just created for C.A.R. Now, for the very first time that you input this information in, you're going to be asked to fill in a profile. The big thing on your profile that will, most of your information is already going to be filled in, pulled from your NRDS information, which is submitted by the associations here. But the two things that you're going to need to input in for that profile is a email address and phone number. Once you click on that, you're going to agree to the terms of usage for C.A.R. and then you're going to choose the product zipForms Plus. Once you choose zipForms Plus, you will be taken to a screen that looks like this, and now, from now on, you're just going to see the screen, and all you would need to do is come over to the bottom right corner and click on Continue anytime you log in the future. When you click on Continue, you are now going to be taken to your transaction list here in zipForms. Now here at your transaction list, this will give you a list of all your created transactions in zipForms. If this is your first time accessing zipForms, then you won't have any transactions here. It's as we create transactions that they will be added here for us to go in, modify the various different contracts, so on and so forth, which we'll go over in a minute. But what I want to bring your attention to super quickly before we do that is over here to the right hand side. Next to my name, you'll notice that there is a photo of myself. Now, unfortunately, this was not an option when I first filled in my profile in zipForms. Well, if you want to add in a photo of yourself here, which is nice, only because when I email out something from a transaction, I want my photo to go out with that email or digital signature request. To add a photo here, very simply, we just click on our name. We get a list of menu choices. We're going to click on View Profile. When we click on View Profile, here is our profile information that we had filled in, but if we need to change anything like our phone numbers or our email address, we can. But you'll notice over here to the right-hand corner, you will have a button that will say Add Edit. When you click on Add Edit, you're going to now browse your computer for a photo of yourself. Okay. Now, besides updating your photo, we can scroll all the way down, and down at the bottom, we can also create an email signature. Here we can, how we want to end our emails all the time. Maybe we end our emails formally by saying sincerely, gratefully, thankfully, our name, our phone numbers, our company, our Calbieri license, or maybe we treat every client like a best friend, so maybe we say just later guy, later dude, talk to you soon, and then your name. Whatever you change in your profile, don't forget to hit save, either at the top or at the bottom. Now, there's one other thing that I want to show you here before we leave the profile, and that is over here to the left, settings. Here under the settings, we can change certain settings in our zip forms. The very first option is our e-signature option. Here we are all defaulted into digital ink. This is your C.A.R. provided free member benefit. Everyone is defaulted into digital ink, but some of you today may use DocuSign or like to use DocuSign. Well, instead of saving contracts onto our computer whereby we upload them into DocuSign and then have to manually place all the signatures on those PDFs, instead, here in zipForms, I can merge my DocuSign account with my zipForms account, and now I don't have to worry about saving documents and then re-uploading them and then placing the signatures. So here what I can now do is select my DocuSign choice if I pay for my DocuSign subscription, put in my DocuSign account information, and now when I hit save, I have now merged my DocuSign account with my zipForms account. So now when I send out documents for digital signature through zipForms, it's automatically going to be using my DocuSign account. So if some of you here today like DocuSign versus digital ink, this is how you want to merge it. Those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry, just use digital ink because again, this is your free member benefit, and both of them are very user-friendly and very easy to use. And we'll touch on that a little bit today with given some time, okay? All right, so anything that you modify in your settings, just like with your profile, always hit save. All right, so let's get back to the transaction list. Here, what we're going to do super quickly is go over some of our menu choices here on our transaction tab. Very simply, what we're going to do, first and foremost, is that we can create a transaction in 3 ways. The first way is with the Forms button. The Forms button immediately takes us to the Forms area, whereby here in the Forms area, we can look over to the right-hand corner and now look at over 329 forms for buying, selling, leasing properties in the state of California for both commercial and residential. If I want to modify a form or I need to modify a form for a transaction, simply click on the form that you need. It adds it to the transaction whereby I can go in and modify that form. If I don't want to scroll through 329 forms, and I need to get forms very quickly and easily, I can do so right here at the very top above the forms where it says search for form by name or description. Very simply, click in this box and maybe type in the number of the form, like RPA. The moment I type in RPA, then only the forms that are associated with RPA will appear as either being the form number or the form name. So here we've got the residential purchase agreement, RPA, CA, or an RPA financing worksheet because it's got RPA as part of the title. And again, simply click on the form that you need. Now, if I don't know the number of the form, but I know part of the name of the form, like disclosure, oops. Now, all of a sudden, the forms list sorts to only give me those forms that have the word disclosure as part of the number or the title. So this is a quick and easy way of finding the forms that you need and adding them to a transaction. Now here, once I hit save, now I'm going to be asked to name the transaction, choose the transaction type, choose the property type, and then hit save. Now this is one way of creating a transaction in zipForms. The other way of creating a transaction in zipForms is with the new button. Now the new button here, which is a little bit different than the Forms button. Forms button takes you immediately to the Forms area first and foremost, and then when I hit save, I then name the transaction. Well, here when I click the new button, I am first asked to name the transaction, choose the transaction type, choose the property type, and now when I hit save here, I will then be taken to the Forms area where I can now add forms to the transaction. Now there is one choice here that I did not show in the first button, and that is this choice here, adding a photo. What I can now do in zipForms is not only name the transaction something specific to make it stand out, but I can also upload a photo to a transaction to make the transaction stand out visually. Now, why is this option here? Well, maybe I am dealing with a client that's maybe making multiple offers on multiple different homes. And even though I named the transaction either by property address or client's name or a combination of the two to help differentiate between my sellers and buyers, sometimes I get so darn busy that it's very easy for me to go into the wrong transaction by mistake. Well, now with this add photo button, I can now upload a photo to make this transaction stand out. Maybe it'll stand out to me visually besides me having to read the title. So this photo can be whatever you want. It can be of the property, it can be of the clients, it can be of the dog, the cat, the kids, the flower bed, the sidewalk, whatever. Just please be mindful of the type of photo that you're uploading, because like with your profile picture, this photo also goes out to a client or a person if you ever send out anything from the transaction. So if I email contracts to a client, not only does my profile picture go out, but the photo to the transaction also goes out to that recipient. So just be careful. All right, now the third way of creating a transaction in zipForms is with this button here called Forms Advisor. Now, Forms Advisor, I love this tool. What Forms Advisor allows you to do is answer a set of legal questions, most of which are yes or no answers, and will compile a list of forms required for a transaction. So, if you're brand new to the business and you're not sure exactly what forms you need and you have nobody to help you out with that, Forms Advisor is a wonderful tool to help get you started. Now, if you're a veteran of the business and you think you know it all, Forms Advisor is also a great tool because maybe you've come across a weird transaction you've never dealt with before. So Forms Advisor is going to help you as well. So we'll use myself as an example. Maybe I've been in the business for 15 years, and in my business, all I deal with is buying and selling of properties. Okay, that's all I do all day long. Work with buyers, work with sellers. But in reaching out to my sphere of influence, my past clients, one of my past clients contacts me back and says, hey, Tony, I want to list my home, but I don't want to sell it. I'm getting a little bit older now. I want to start leasing my property out. Well, wait a minute. I have never dealt with a lease before. My friends and my colleagues who help get me into the business, all I do is buying and selling homes too. My broker, my office manager may be on vacation or off somewhere else starting up a brand new office. They're not readily available to answer my questions. Am I going to take my hard-earned client that I've spent money to retain and pass it off to someone else that may be a quote-unquote leasing expert? Probably not, right? Because I believe in customer service. So what I'm going to do, come into my zipForms in this case. I'm going to come over to where it says Forms Advisor. When I click on the Forms Advisor button, Forms Advisor opens up. I'm going to say, okay, let's start. Right away over on the left-hand side, I'm kind of asked, what type of transaction are we dealing with? Am I dealing with a purchase of a property, a leasing of a property, or property management, or other? I'm sorry. Well, I'm dealing with leasing. When I click on the plus sign, am I dealing with the listing side, the leasing side, or property management? Well, I'm going to be listing this property. When I click on listing, I'm now going to be able to go through all these tabs and answer all the necessary questions. Now, and I'm going to zoom in here so everybody can see these a little bit. Here, if we have an answer or a question that's got maybe multiple choices, just simply click on the down arrow and select the necessary choice. If I need to switch an answer from yes to no or no to yes, simply click on that answer. Once I'm done with the first tab, simply click on Accept Items and go right through my next set of questions. So here I'm just going to change some answers around super quickly. You all will actually go through these questions a lot more thoroughly than today's training, but I will say that some of these questions you're probably going to ask yourself, my goodness, how would I ever know the answers to this? Well, just try to answer it as best you can. Just remember that these are lawyers asking you these questions. So if you've ever watched any lawyer show ever, you probably have seen that some lawyers ask some of the most off-the-wall questions sometimes. So this is no different. These are lawyers asking you these questions, so the thing I can say is answer it as best you can, because the better you are at answering the question, the more accurate the system will be in giving you the appropriate contracts to this transaction. So now once I'm done with the last set of questions here and I hit accept, here at the summary I can now review all the questions and all my answers. If I agree with everything that I see here, just simply hit I accept. Now what happens here is that now I can name the session. What's cool about this is that if I ever come across this same situation ever again, instead of re-answering these same questions over and over and over again for the same scenarios, all I need to do is, because I've named it, come over to the file list, click on the down arrow, and reference this session. So maybe I'm going to name it something that will stand out, like Han Solo lease 317. Okay. Now when I say OK, Forms Advisor analyzes my answers, and now it gives me a chart of what forms. Now it's very quickly, starting from left to right, the green dot or the green check marks, these are the forms that are going to be used. Gives us the form number, gives us the form name. Now, what I love about Forms Advisor is that it links you into 2 other free member benefits offered to you by C.A.R. The first is Forms Tutor. Now, Forms Tutor was created by C.A.R. Legal to explain to you, the agent, how and why this form is used. Now, the reason why is that important is because you as an agent need to know the legalities behind a contract, right? You have to explain to the client why they're signing this form and what each paragraph pretty much means. So how do we know what this form means? Well, when we click on Forms Tutor here, Forms Tutor opens up at C.A.R.'s website. And what should happen here is that the form should open up. Don't know why that happened. Let's try that again. Forms Advisor should open up for us. Let's go back in and learn and thrive here. Forms Advisor should open up for you all. And if it does, then what should happen is, and by the way, we can access Forms Tutor directly from C.A.R.'s website. If we go over to where it says Transaction Center, and then we go to zipForms, and then from here we're going to go and click on Forms Advisor Forms Tutor. We can actually launch Forms Tutor and look at every form from A to Z. So here what should happen is that Forms Tutor should open up to this form, ESD. Okay. Don't know why this is not opening up for me today. So what should happen is when Forms Tutor opens up, we should see the form. We will see little blue dots across the form. What should happen is these little blue dots will appear all over the form, and what will happen is that you can click on a blue dot. When you click on a blue dot, depending on the paragraph or the page of the document, because you'll see them throughout the entire document, typically depending on the document, by page, or you'll see a dot on every page, you'll see a dot on every paragraph, and depending on the form, every line, depending on the form. When you click on that dot, you'll immediately see a written explanation of that line, of that paragraph, of that page. But you'll also, because most people do not like to read, which is understandable, there will be a choice to play an audio file explaining to you audioly what that paragraph means, what that line means, or what that page means of the contract. So you should be able to see that. And again, I apologize. Let's try this again. Forms Advisor, Forms Tutor. Just to at least show you one form, that would be great. Okay, so it looks like it might be down, and I apologize, everybody, about that. That's quite disappointing. I'll have to talk to C.A.R. about why this feature is not working all of a sudden. All right, so there goes my wind out of my sails. So here we can learn what the legalities are behind the contract by clicking on Forms Tutor. Now, you're also linked into a secondary benefit at C.A.R., and that's a link into the Q&A section. So here we can look at, through C.A.R.'s websites, questions by you, the agent, regarding this form for various situations, and C.A.R.'s legal's response to those questions. Okay, so between the Forms Tutor and the Q&A section, you can now learn the full aspects of why this form is here, which is important for us because now if we know why that form is there, we can now fully explain to the client why they're signing this form, which now if we explain things more confidently, then they have more confidence in us and our abilities. Now, from here, we can also preview what the form looks like. Now, if we scroll down just a tad bit, underneath all of this, we have a choice now that says create a new transaction. Here, we click on this button. We can now name the transaction whatever we want. The transaction has now been successfully created. Now all we need to do is simply click OK. Come down below, click on OK in the bottom left corner to close out a Forms Advisor. Here, back at my transaction list, I don't see the transaction just yet. Simply come over to the top left, click on the Transactions tab, which refreshes our screen, and now there's a Han Solo lease created for us. Now all I need to do is click on the transaction itself to go into the body of the transaction, and now here are all the forms that Forms Tutor or Forms Advisor has now given me for this transaction. Now all I need to do is click on the form and begin to fill out the form. Technically, we created that transaction in less than 10 minutes. So this is a great tool to try out. All right, any questions on Forms Advisor or anything else so far? So try this tool out. So if you're a long-time agent or a short-time agent, Forms Advisor is a great tool to use. Okay. Let's see here. We'll go over one last tool here at the transaction level, and then we'll dive right into a transaction, and that is the mortgage calculator. Here, the mortgage calculator is a great tool because not only can we double check our math, but we can use this for a client to show them what their estimated payments, monthly payments are, as well as being able to show them a estimated amortization schedule. Oh, we do have a question. Would you be able to turn Han Solo's lease into a template? Lacey, the answer to that will be yes. You can turn a transaction into a template very simply. In this case, once I create the transaction here before I put in any information onto these forms, because maybe I want this for all my leases, simply hover over top of the transaction just like so. A little arrow appears in the top right corner. Simply click on the down arrow. From here, we get a list of menu choices. One of our menu choices says Save as a Template. What this means is I am now going to copy this transaction and put it into my templates list for me to apply to multiple transactions in the future. So any terms that I've typed in here, any documents I've added will be copied directly over into a template. Now, in this case, because I haven't filled out anything on these forms yet, which is really nice, because I want to fill this in for a specific person or a specific transaction, before I type any of that transaction-specific information, I'm now going to click on Save as a Template. I can name the template. I don't need to worry about the template type or the property type, but now all I need to do is hit Save, and now that transaction has been copied into my template list. So if I click on the templates, there's that template that we just created from the transaction, and here are all those forms that were in that transaction. Now maybe I go in here and fill out some generic terms like my name, my company, things like that, okay? That way I can apply them to future transactions. But we'll go over that here in a few minutes. Did that help, Lacey? Great, excellent. All right, so let's get back to that mortgage calculator just to demonstrate this a little bit. The mortgage calculator not only allows us to double check our math, but we can show estimated monthly payments and amortization. So if a client really wants to know what goes to principal and interest, we can show them. So here, when I click on mortgage calculator, just to demonstrate this, all I need is at least 3 numbers. Maybe they want to borrow or need to borrow $575,000. And maybe today's interest rate is 4.85%. And the loan terms, that's 360. By the way, 360 is a 30-year. So if you think about it, 12 payments per year times 30, that's 360. Now when I hit tab, I can show a potential client that their monthly payments, barring all these other expenses, should be around $3,000, maybe $3,200 if you're talking about taxes and insurances and things like that. Now, if your client really wants to know what goes to principal and what goes to interest, sure, maybe we say, all right, their first payment is going to be due in May of 2017. Come back over here to the left-hand side, and if we click on the display table, now the amortization schedule opens up. By the way, we can print this if we want, but now we can show a client what goes to principal, what goes to interest for the entire life of the loan. So that by the end of 30 years, we can show a client that they've paid back $575,000, which was the original loan, but they've also paid $517,000 in interest payments. All right, so let's go into a transaction. I create the transaction, we click on the transaction to go into it. We kind of went over the key things here of adding in the forms by looking at all 329 forms, and we just simply click on the form to add it to the transaction, or click on the search bar, type in the form's name or the form number, find it, click it, and add it. Now, I'm going to shove that menu off to the side by clicking on this little arrow here, and we've got some extra menu choices just to go over super quickly. In our zipForms today, just to go over a few of these menu buttons here, we can upload documents to our transaction. Here what we can do is add documents to our transaction for our clients. So maybe I'm working with a buyer, and in our with our buyer, they usually send us their proof of funds, a copy of their earnest money deposit check, a bank statement, a letter from their lender saying that they're qualified for X amount of dollars, and of course a letter from their parents or grandparents saying that they're a great buyer, right? Along with maybe a letter that we create for them. Well, those are about 5 or 6 different attachments to an email, right? And a lot of times, not only do I have these documents on my computer saved in a nice little folder, but what I can now do is add a document in my transaction. I can upload PDF files, Word files, Excel spreadsheets, PowerPoint documents. I can even upload picture files. Besides a buyer, maybe I'm working with a listing agent or working with a seller, and I get 5 or 10, 15 offers on this property. What I can now do is browse my computer and upload those documents as part of the transaction. How will you do that? Very simply, click on Add a Document. Here we can browse our computers for those documents. So here we find the documents that we need, letter from the lender. Now when I say open, and I can say OK, a copy from my computer has now been uploaded as part of the transaction. Now, so I can upload as many documents as I want. Now, if I'm uploading documents this way, I also need to keep them organized. How do we keep them organized? Simply click on the Add Folders button, name the folder. Now when I say OK, the folder is now created. To get the document into the folder, simply hover over top of the document, click and hold down with your mouse, drag it over top of the folder and let go. And now we have officially moved those documents as part of the transaction. And there's a question. Can you add a PDF file that requires additional signatures? Yes, you can, Christina. You are not limited to that. So here, if I'm uploading documents as part of the transaction, I can also digitally sign these PDF documents. Just know that because it's a PDF file, I have to, whether it's Digital Ink or DocuSign, place those signatures on those documents. So I can briefly touch on those hopefully today. Okay? Now, by the way, that was going through add document first or add a folder and then add a folder. But if you wanted to, you could add a folder first and then upload the, go into the folder and then add the document that way. So maybe if we're representing a seller, we create a folder called Offer 1, Offer 2, Offer 3, right? We go into every one of those folders and upload the appropriate documents into those folders. Purchase agreements, proof of funds, earnest money deposit check, so on and so forth. Now, if we're also adding in documents, we can delete documents. Very simply, we click on delete a document. Now we can pick and choose what documents or folders to be deleted from the transaction. Now when we hit delete, are you sure? Now those documents have been officially removed from the transaction. They have not been deleted from my computer. So hopefully I haven't deleted anything from my computer, but I can now keep my transaction free and clear. Okay. Let's see here. The next button, print. We can print out multiple forms or documents. The only thing I'm not allowed to print are blank forms. C.A.R., because of copyright laws, require that a bare minimum of a property address be printed or typed in on a form before it's allowed to be printed. So there are some agents out there that do have a workaround, but unfortunately, legally, I can't tell you what that workaround is. But I will say that if you're going on a listing appointment, you pretty much know the property address that you're going to go and visit. So if you needed to take contracts with you, you can, which is great. Just type in the property address on the form and then print them out. Buying appointments is a little bit tougher and trickier because you're just not sure exactly what properties your clients are going to want to make offers on. So that's going to be a little bit trickier, but I will say that with today's technology, and if you were here in my class last week, you have access to zipForms on your tablet device. It's called zipForms Mobile. So there you can access your zipForms online account, be able to write up contracts, edit contracts, and then most importantly on the tablet, be able to physically sign on the contract. So really there's no need for you to ever carry paper with you at all. And that's just my opinion. Okay. Let's see here. Send, this is your email option. E-sign, this is your digital signature choice where you can begin to digitally sign documents. Collaborate, collaborate's a great button here because now we can share access into our transaction with various people to be able to give them the rights to view, save, and print documents out of our transaction. This is great for when you get documents signed, and instead of me creating multiple emails where I send various different documents to the other agent on the other side, I can, with all the documents within the transaction, in this case all PDF files, I can now collaborate all the PDF files in one small email link to whoever, the client, the agent, the lender, the title, the escrow, the broker, the office manager, or even better yet, anyone, for them to view, save, and print any document that I give them access to. So this is a really great tool. It makes your zipForms transaction act like Dropbox or Google Drive. If anybody uses those cloud-based systems, you know that you have a capability to be able to share documents with other people, so that way you don't have to necessarily attach those documents as attachments in emails, whereby they can go right into your account only to view and save and print those files. So in this case, zipForms gives you now that capability to do those things, okay? And then, of course, the last button over here, Copy PDF. Copy PDF is great because maybe I've uploaded my client's documents in one transaction. They're making multiple offers. Well, instead of me going into those other transactions whereby I keep clicking on Add Folder, then Add Document, Add Folder, Add Documents, to upload the same documents. Instead, with the transaction already created in my transaction list, I'm just going to go into the one transaction that I've uploaded these PDF files into. Now I'm going to say Copy PDFs. I'm going to select the PDF documents that I want copied. And now over here to the left, I'm going to say Copy to a transaction. And now I pick the transaction that I want these documents to be copied into. And now I can choose to copy and open or copy. In this case, copy and open. Now I'm taken to the 789 Mordor transaction, and now there are those PDFs. Now I can add in or add a folder and put those PDF documents into. And now this offer has the exact same documents as the other offer for their proof of funds, earnest money deposit check, so on and so forth. So now when I go to get these contracts signed, I can submit everything all in one fell swoop, if that makes sense. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Let's go into a form super quickly. Going to the form, we click on the form. Here we've got the form, nice big view of the form itself, but I know after a while when you're sitting in front of your computer 17, 25 hours a day, 8 days a week, this tends to get a little blurry, right? So come over here to the top left, click on the full screen button, and now the form takes up the full size of the screen. It's easier for us to view and read and write up. Next to that is the manual save button. Here, periodically save your work, but I will say that zipForms Online has gone one step further. They know that you as an agent just like to make super quick changes sometimes. So even on the smallest change that you've made in your contract, the moment I select another menu choice, or maybe I come over here to the left-hand side, click on My Forms in the transaction, and now click on a different form, you'll notice that it automatically saved my work. So now no matter what I do in a form, zipForms automatically will always save all your changes. So even if it was a change I didn't mean to save, it automatically saved my work. Okay? So be mindful of that. Be careful of that. Okay? All right, let's see here. Next to save, email this form or multiple forms in the transaction. Print out this form or multiple forms in the transaction. Fast fill, love fast fill. What this does is it takes out all this pre-written legal text and leaves in only the blank lines to fill in. So if I know this form like the back of my hand and I just need to fill it in super quickly, click on fast fill. Takes out all this pre-written legal jargon, and now I can just go up and down this form filling in exactly what I need, writing in exactly what I need. Now, if at any given time I ever get lost in a form, not sure exactly what I need to type, simply click on fast fill one more time. Saves your work, repopulates in the text from where you're at. Now we can read on. Oh, I know what I need to exactly type here. Re-click on fast fill, and now continue onward. Okay, so this is a great and easy way of filling in documents quickly. Highlight, love this tool. What this tool allows you to do is highlight sections of pre-written text. This is a drafting tool. So if you need to get a question answered by your broker regarding a certain section of a form, and instead of telling them, please read through this form to try to find it, you can now highlight it so it's easier for them to, it stands out to them when you send them the contract. And now they can see exactly, or tell you exactly what you're reading. This is also a good tool to send to or use with your clients who haven't signed the forms yet. Maybe there's an area of the form that you need to help negotiate with them, and you need them to understand what's in the contract. Like for an example, here in the residential listing agreement, anybody familiar with paragraph 11? Paragraph 11 of the listing agreement pertains to photography. If you're not familiar with this paragraph, this is something that you may want to read over. Here, paragraph 11 affects you as a listing agent when it comes to photos and photography and virtual tours, any media. Maybe we need to get our clients to understand, who have told me time and time again that they're very private people. Maybe I need to make sure that they read through this portion of the contract before they sign it, because maybe some of our terms might need to change. Well, what I can do is come over here to the highlight tool. By the way, not everybody likes yellow. Just simply click on the color, select the color that you need. Now highlight over the area in the form that you want highlighted, and then click highlight. Now we've just highlighted this form. Now I can come over to email this document as a PDF, and now on the PDF, this will come out as a highlight. Now, I will say that this is, again, a drafting tool. So if you're going to get these documents signed, whether they're digital signatures or physical signatures, please make sure that you remove the highlight. Reason why is that if you send this out for digital or for physical signatures, most people's printers print in black and white. Even at the lightest color, this will come out jet black. So the last thing you as an agent want is to have a client sign a form with areas of the form blacked out. Also, even on a color printer, like the pink highlight here, on a color printer, this will actually hide all the black lettering. So it's like blacking things out. So you want to remove, if you're sending this out for signatures, you want to remove the highlights. So once you get the term negotiated or the term clarified by your broker, remove the highlight. How we can remove the highlight? One of two ways. One, we can double click on the line and it removes the highlight immediately. Or select the color that we're about to remove, re-highlight over the exact area that we just highlighted, click on the highlight tool again, and that removes the highlight, just like so. So again, click on the color, re-highlight over the exact same area, click highlight to remove it. Okay. Next tool, MLS Connect. Love this tool. This is great for those of you working with buyers. What this does is it imports MLS listing data directly onto your contracts. So one form that I recommend, and this is less typing you have to worry about doing. So in everybody's transactions, what I recommend everyone have is a cover sheet. If you click on cover sheet, you'll notice here on the cover sheet, this has all the common areas of all the forms. Page 1 of the cover sheet has your buyer and or seller information. All you need to do is type in the first name, last name, and email address of the client. Come down below. Page 2 has the property information, street address, list price. You also have an area for you to make your offer to, how much, down payment, so on and so forth. Come down below, page 3, selling agent as well as listing brokerage information. Now normally we have to type most of all of this up, right? Type, 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 type. We don't want to do that. Here what we're going to do is we're going to type in a client's name. Whoops. Type in their first name, their last name, and email address. From here, instead of me going down to page 2 where I fill in the property information along with my offer, and then coming down below to page 3 where I type in myself as a selling broker, and then type in the listing brokerage information, instead what I want to do is come over here to where it says zipForms MLS Connect, click on that button. From here it defaults to my MLS system, in this case C.A.R MLS because I'm a C.A.R MLS member. I now need to select the property type because when I type in the MLS number, if the MLS number and the property type do not match, we won't be able to find the listing. So if this is a lease or land lot or mobile home or commercial property, click on the down arrow here and select your property type. Now with the property type selected, simply type in the MLS number to the property. By the way, I can include the primary photo from the listing as part of my transaction, as we were talking about before. And now when I click Find, hopefully C.A.R MLS or zipForms connects up to C.A.R MLS, finds the listing just like so. And now when I click on Import, I'll say yes, import this information. Okay. I'm now back at page 1 of the cover sheet. Page 1 looks no different because this is my client information, right? But when I scroll down towards page 2, when I go to write up my offer, there's the listing information. There's the MLS number, property address, APN number, list date, list price, HOA fees, what the list price includes or excludes if it's been typed in on the listing. Come down below, page 3, there's a listing office brokerage information, all nice and neatly typed in. So this is a great tool if you're representing a buyer because now you can import that MLS listing directly onto your contracts. Now, this is not such a great tool if you're representing a seller. Reason why is that technically your listing's not in the MLS yet until you have a signed agreement, right? So there's really nothing to import. And if you did try to import another agent's expired listing onto your listing agreements, guess what you're retyping over anyway? Things like the list price, the list date, the expiration date, the listing agent information, right? Because if you put their information in, that means that they're the listing agent, right? That's not the case in this case. So really, MLS Connect is not such a great tool for you as a seller or representing a seller, but this is a great tool if you're representing a buyer. So there you go. Okay. All right. Let's see here. One last tool that we'll go over here. Let me get back into that transaction, into the form, attach photos. Love attach photos. What the attach photos button allows you to do is attach photos directly onto your forms. This is a great tool for those of you who do AVIDs. And AVID stands for agent visual inspection disclosure. You know that this is your physical inspection of the property where you walk around and you note the things that are obvious defects. Now, sometimes when noting certain things down, it can get a little tricky, right? Well, this is where the attached photo is going to help you. You can upload as many photos as you want to a form. Each photo that you add will be added as a subsequent page right after the last page of the contract. And we'll go over that here in a second. But here, what we can now do, because we have our phone devices with us at all times, right? Because our phones are like the old American Express card. You never leave home without it. You guys have cameras on your phones, hopefully. You should. So now if you come across a physical defect in a home and it's hard for you to describe, you can now take a picture of it and now attach it to your Avid as one of your contracts. So maybe here I'm typing up my Avid. I have a picture I've taken with my phone. I take that picture off my phone, upload it to my computer. Here, while I'm editing or modifying my Avid, one of my notes here on my Avid is, at the entry, the rain gutters don't seem to drain anywhere. Now, I know most of you would think that I was a crazy person telling me, well, what do you mean they don't drain anywhere? They got to drain somewhere, right? You would think. Because I've taken a photo of those rain gutters above the entry, what I'm now going to do is come over here to the Attach Photo button, click on Attach Photo. Now I'm going to browse my computer for those photos. When I see that photo and I click on it, I'm now going to describe the photo. Rain gutters above entry. Now when I say OK, a copy from my computer has now been uploaded as part of the contract. Here, there's the photo reference. I'm now going to click and hold down with my mouse, drag that photo reference to wherever I need it to go, and let go. Maybe my next notation, the dining room, there's floor damage near the sliding glass door. Can't tell you what type of floor damage it is, but I've taken a picture of it. So go over here to Attach Photo, Attach, find that photo, and describe it. By the way, you want to describe your photos. So here, floor near sliding glass door in dining area. When I say OK, this photo is added at the top of the contract. Don't worry if it says photo 1, because the moment I drag it underneath the first photo and I let go, it now becomes photo 2. So here what I can do is go through my Avid, writing what I need to, and then attaching photos to the property. So now when I go to save this and I send it out for digital signatures, or I email it to a client as a PDF document, these photos are now going to be added as subsequent pages after the last page of the contract. So just to show you what this looks like, when they get that document for digital signatures, or they print this out on their printer, what they will see is this. Here, looking at the Avid, we notice that page 1 looks no different, because again, that's, explains what this contract's all about. Page 2, we come down below and we see here, there's the entry, there's my comment about the rain gutters don't seem to drain anywhere, and there's reference to photo 1. Here, dining area, floor damage near the sliding glass door, reference to photo 2. Photo 3, photo 4, photo 75, 175, whatever. When we get down past the last page of the last page of the contract, we'll notice that all of a sudden there's a 4th page. Here, there's reference to photo 1, and now there are the rain gutters above the entry that don't seem to drain anywhere. So now we have physical proof of what we saw about the rain gutters right above that entry. So here, if you look, water doesn't seem to drain anywhere. Also come down below, we notice that there is reference to photo 2, page 5. There's the floor damage near the sliding glass door in the dining area. Don't know what type of floor damage it is. We don't know if it's water damage or what have you, but at least now we can show a client what we've seen, and it's now up to the client whether or not they need to do certain inspections or repairs or anything like this. And by the way, you'll notice that underneath each picture is the date and timestamp that I uploaded this photo to the contract. So this is a huge, huge thing for you, okay? So, by the way, besides the Avid that I think this feature is good for. I think attach photos is great for, say, the RR, which is the repair request. Example, in your repair request, you're making notations on the inspection report of what your client wants fixed, right? Well, what's in the inspection report? Photos. So now ask your inspector to email you a copy of those photos. So now when you're putting the repair request together, you can now attach the photos of the requested items as part of that contract. So now maybe in repair request, when you say line item 35 needs this fixed, you can now put the photo that the inspector has given you for line 35, right? Now when the seller and the listing agent get your RR, instead of them having to go back to the inspection report to see what line item that is, you've now shown them in one form what it is that your clients are asking to be repaired. Now, the third form that I think this particular feature is really good for is the MEMO. MEMO stands for the move in, move out. So this is what you, this is the form that you use for a tenant. So it's your inspection of the property when they go to move in. So now when you go and write up the conditions of the property, you take pictures of before, you attach them to the MEMO, they sign off on it. So now you've got a before. Now when they go to move out, you walk around with a new MEMO, you take brand new pictures. Now you've got an after. So now you've got a before and after. So now tenants can't say, well, that was always broken like that, or that was always, you know, that always had a scratch, or what have you. Really? Seriously? Well, here's the MEMO that you signed off before with that exact same picture. This is what it looked like before. This is what it looks like now. This is why we have to keep your deposit. Things like that. So I think this particular feature will help you as an agent be able to properly disclose as best you can without having to come up with unique ways of writing things a lot of times, because I know you guys can't say it's a big crack or a small crack. You can only note that there's a crack in the wall. But now you can take a picture of that crack, and now it's up to that client to see what's causing that crack, or needing to get it inspected, or whatever. So this kind of helps you out, okay? Are there any questions on any of this? I know this was probably the long and boring part of it, but now we're going to go into two last things super quickly, okay? I had mentioned earlier about templates. We're going to create a template today. What a template is, just for those of you who don't know what a template is basically a set of saved forms that you constantly use for multiple transactions. So instead of you creating a transaction where you grab the exact same forms over and over again, where you have to fill out all the forms from scratch, what a template allows you to do is grab those forms, put in some generic information like your name, your Calgary license number, the company that you work for, and maybe some generic terms that you always try to negotiate for that type of client that you can now apply for multiple transactions. A template will save you anywhere from 15 or 20 minutes per transaction. So, some of you here today may work out an office that the broker or office manager has given you a list of forms required for every transaction, right? If you're working with a buyer, you need to have these forms together. If you're working with a seller, you need to have these forms, right? Well, let's make those into templates. So, how do we make a template? Very simply, we click on the Templates tab at the very top. When we click on the Templates tab, here will be a list of all my created templates. If you have no templates created, this will be blank. That's okay. Create a template, very simply, we click on New. When we click on New, we name the template. Now, unlike naming a transaction where transaction is either client or property specific, we're going to name our templates client generic. So in this case, maybe we're going to create a purchase template. So maybe I call the template purchase, buyer, standard sale purchase, short sale purchase, REO purchase. If I'm creating a seller's template, maybe I call it seller, or listing, or standard sale, or short sale, or REO sale, whatever. So today we're going to create a purchase template. Now we're going to choose the template type. We're going to choose the property type. Now, we do also have a new choice down below here that started a few months ago, and it's called the auto apply. What this does is it allows us to automatically apply this template to either every transaction or every purchase transaction in this case because it's a purchase. Now, I would typically not recommend that only because not every purchase transaction is a standard sale purchase. Maybe it's a probate or a trustee sale, right? You're going to need different contracts. So this template may not be applicable to that. Or if I apply this template to every transaction, that means when I put a listing together or a listing transaction together, this template's going to automatically be applied. I don't want that. So what I want to do is leave it at the first choice of do not automatically apply the template. I want to be the one in charge of what templates and which templates get applied to which transactions. So leave it at its default, do not apply. Okay? With that, now we hit save. Now, what I'm going to do here is now go through like a transaction and select the forms that we need. Now, in this case, because my broker or office manager has given me a list of forms required, now I use that speed bar, type in the form number or the form name, and grab those forms quickly and easily. Right? So here, we got a commission agreement. See if I can't find that. There it is. So whatever forms that you might need. Now with the forms added, I'm now going to go into the forms and type in my generic information. Again, the generic information will be my name, my office information, my CalBRA license. Maybe I go into the forms and now I put in some of the generic information that I always try to negotiate for that type of client. Like, in this case, how many days escrow do I shoot for? Who pays for what? Is this a loan or all cash? Do I always accept all cash offer, or do I only deal with all cash offers, or do I deal with loans? Who pays for what? Buyer or seller? Things like that. Okay? Once you type in those generic terms and you hit save, now we're ready to apply this template to a transaction. So now, when we go to create a new transaction and we name it, and we choose the transaction type and the property type, we will now get a new bar that appears down below that says apply a template. From here, if we click on the down arrow, we are now given a whole slew of templates that we have created. Now we select the template that we need, and now we hit save. Now all those forms and all those generic terms are now applied to this transaction. So now what do I need to do? I need to now go into the forms and type in my specific information, like property address, offer, client information, things like that. But maybe, and here you'll notice that there are some things that are already typed in that I don't have to worry about typing in. But maybe some of these generic terms might actually change. Like in this case, I have first loan information, but in this case, maybe this buyer is offering an all-cash offer. So what I'll do is I'll go through and change everything that I need, but I don't have to change everything. Maybe some things will remain the same, okay? And again, a template will save you anywhere from 15 or 20 minutes per transaction. So in this case, working with a buyer, right, and I have a buyer's template, what happens if that buyer makes 5 offers on 5 homes that we saw today? 20 minutes per transaction where I'm not having to grab the same forms. Now all of a sudden what? I've got an extra hour or 2 to my day, right? Now maybe I can sleep, eat, shower, shave, or most importantly, work on some other transactions that need some work, or work on important marketing. The whole idea behind a template is to basically free up your time because, as we all know, your time is your money. Okay? Are there any questions on creating templates? By the way, if you do create a template, periodically you need to go into the template, okay, and update your forms. Because the forms that you add in on a template today, as you may or may not be aware of, C.A.R. updates their forms at least twice a year, every June and every December. So even though when you apply a template to a transaction, only the newest form will be applied to a transaction, but in that case, it will not apply any of the terms on that new document. Because as we all know, new forms have different words and different things that might have been input it in. So periodically, if we happen to know that a form has been updated and we know that form is in our template list, go into that form or go into that template. Now remove or delete that form from your template and then go from your forms list and find that form to add it and then retype in some of your information. Oh, by the way, here in the template, we can also add in documents. So if we have a company disclosure, right? Some companies that you might work at has their own company disclosure. Well, now we can add that company disclosure as part of our template. Now we don't have to worry about, did I forget to add in my company disclosure to the transaction? Here, if you add it to your template, it's going to be added to every transaction at that point that you apply this template to, okay? Does that make sense? Okay. All right, let's go over one last thing, and I promise to let you all go, and that is let's start up digitally signing documents. I know that this is a little bit beyond the intro to zipForms, but I know everybody's been super patient today and has been really great with their questions. So let's show you how to start up digitally signing documents. Very simply, after we type up the transaction, okay, we add our forms in. Now maybe our clients are getting on a plane headed to Maui, or we've got one client that's in town but they're 2 hours away and another client that's off on a business trip. It's hard to sit down with these clients and get them to physically sign contracts, right? Because our days are just so busy. And a lot of times if we're dealing with clients who are flying around and being at other places, they're at different time zones. So this is where digitally signing is going to help you out. Now, I always recommend to every agent that make sure that all parties involved are okay with accepting digitally signed documents. So make sure that your service vendors, like your lenders, your titles, your escrows, are okay with accepting digitally signed documents. But not only that, but make sure the other agent on the other side of the transaction accepts digitally signed documents, and obviously make sure that your clients are okay with doing digital signatures. You might not want to do digital signatures if your client doesn't even have an email address. I'm just saying, okay? But in a perfect world, nowadays, about 50 to 60% of people are now digitally signing contracts. Whether you have merged your DocuSign or Digital Ink account with zipForms, and today we're going to be using Digital Ink, the very simple steps to start documents to get digitally signed, meaning send them out to your clients, be in the transaction, have your transaction typed up. For those of you who want to practice this today, create a test transaction, grab at least one form today, at least put in a signer's name, in this case yours, put in a property address, in this case maybe your office address or your home address. Depending on the form, you're either the buyer or the seller, okay? From here, in the transaction, come over to the top right corner, click on e-sign. When you click on e-sign, here you get to see the entire history of all the digital signatures that you've done for this transaction. But if this is a transaction you've done for the very first time, or this is the first time doing this, this will all be blank. So to create, we come over to the top left, click on create to create a new signature packet. From here, we can now select what documents, what forms we want to have digitally signed. Now from here, we've got two zipForms documents, but if I have that PDF document and I select the PDF document here, know right away that I have to do some work, whether it's Digital Ink or DocuSign. So if I select a PDF document, this document has no areas indicating to the signers where they need to sign or initial. I have to place them on the PDF. Whereas on the zipForms documents, about 90% of your zipForms documents already have the areas placed. So I don't have to do but 10% of the work. With the document selected, we now hit next. Now, this is where the power of the cover sheet comes in. When I come to select the signers, if I have a cover sheet and I filled out the first name, last name, and email address of the signer on the page 1 of the cover sheet, then the first name, last name, email address of the signer is filled out here. If I do not have a cover sheet in a transaction, then only the first name and last name will be filled in. I will then have to click on the email choice, type in the email address before I'm allowed to select the signer. Okay? So now if I was up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and I'm typing up email addresses, I could make a mistake. So I would say put it on the cover sheet, less hassle you have to worry about doing. Now from here, we can now select our signers. Now you'll notice that as I select my signers, in the background here, it puts them in order of selection. This order indicates the order in which the email goes out in, okay? Now some of us may want to switch this order. So in this case, after I've selected my signers, my clients, and myself, because maybe I have to sign some documents as well, I'm going to click Done. When I do that, from here, we can now switch the order. How we switch the order? Very simply, hover over top of the signer, just like so. Click and hold down with my mouse, drag it above number 1, and let go. Now we've just switched the order. We've made seller 1 first, seller 2 second, listing agent third. Now some of you in this room will probably ask me, or on the webinar will ask, well, hey, I want to send this out to everybody all at once. Because if I leave it in the order, that means that only number 1 will get the email first before number 2 and number 3. Number 3 will not get the email request until number 1 and number 2 have signed, completed, and reviewed the documents. Sometimes I may not want that. Maybe I need to get all the signers to sign all simultaneously. We can do that as well. Hover over top of the signer, click and hold down with my mouse, but now instead of dragging it above number 1, I'm going to drag it on top of number 1. And now when I let go, I've now made seller 1 and seller 2 get the emails at the same time. Now, I honestly don't like doing that, only because here, if I happen to notice in my history that after 2 or 3 days I still haven't gotten the signed completed documents back yet, and I look at the history, maybe I see that seller 1 only signed 3 of the 5 documents, seller 2 only signed 2 of the 5 documents. Now what do I have to do? I have to now make multiple phone calls to find out why each signer didn't finish signing? That can be a little bit of a pain, right? Whereas if I leave it in the order, in this case, that if it's still at number 1, all I have to do is make 1 phone call. Now this is providing that they're also at different email addresses. Now if they're at the same email address, then by all means please leave it in the order, because if you send it out at the same time for both signers and they happen to be at 1 email address, it's very easy by accident for 1 signer to sign as the other person. Now you don't want that to happen, okay? Here, if we leave it in the order, and even though they are at the same email address, Desmond gets the email first. Then when Desmond's done with the signing process, a brand new email is sent to the same email address for the second signer. Now, how do I know that each individual is signing individually? Well, doing due diligence, I have to give a call to make sure that my clients read and understand every aspect of those paragraphs. So I am required by my code of ethics and my fiduciary duty to make sure that each signer signs individually and has read and understood every line of that paragraph of those contracts. So that's super important. So it's very easy in this case that when I give Desmond a call, hey Desmond, how you doing? Is Sandra there? Great. Put me on speaker. We'll go over the contracts together. Or Desmond, Sandra's not there, not a problem. We'll go through the contracts with you first. Then when the email is resent for Sandra to sign, I'll give a call back when Sandra gets back in. And then she can go and sign the contracts. That's the way you're supposed to do it. Because technically, according to California state law, spouses are not allowed to sign for each other unless they have a formal power of attorney. Okay? And that's probably because in this state, divorce rate is over 55%. Do not let signers sign for each other, okay? Because again, there are situations where if someone signs it as someone else, that just gets you into trouble, okay? So please make sure that each signer signs individually, okay? Now, from here with the signers in their selected order, we now hit next, the most important step, stage 3. And this looks like that was a new feature there. Here at stage 3, we're going to make sure that all documents have something to do for all of our signers. If we have to place any signature areas on any of the documents, we have to, or we can, but here are the pros and cons very quickly of what I like about Digital Ink versus DocuSign, and vice versa. So right off the bat here with Digital Ink opening up, what I like about Digital Ink so far is that 1, the form takes up the full size of the screen. Okay, whereas DocuSign, the form takes up maybe half the size or a quarter of the size of the screen. So in this case, it's easier for me to review the document. Now, what I dislike about Digital Link versus DocuSign is that when I get down to the bottom of this contract, that's it. I have to come back up to the top, click on the down arrow, and switch between contracts. Whereas DocuSign, the moment I get down to the bottom of the first contract, it immediately uploads the second, the third, the fourth, so on and so forth. So it's easier in DocuSign to go through one contract to another. But this is where the real power of Digital Link comes in, and that is with this big giant blue box here off to the left. This box over here to the left indicates or lets me know right away what tasks already pre-exist for each signer in the form that I'm viewing. So what I mean by that is that in this case, on the RLA listing agreement or residential listing agreement, Seller 1 already has the sign, initial, sign fields already placed. Same thing with Seller 2. If we wanted to verify that, all we need to do is just scroll on the form, and here where we see Desmond's signature, where it's going to go, we see that sign 1 field. If we look at Sandra, there's sign 2 field, so on and so forth. So right away, in Digital Link, all I need to do is look over here in this big blue box and see what tasks already pre-exist for the signer that I'm looking in. So it's quickly and easily. So now when I come across a form like that PDF document, and we see something like this, and I'll highlight this, where I see the signers but nothing in between each of my signers or underneath the signers, then that means that right away I know that I'm in a document that I have to either A, place a signature and or initial or both. How we place those? Very simply. Simply click on the signer, move somewhere in the form or in the document, and now either click and hold either their initial or signature, drag, and let go. Now in this letter from the lender, I've just added Desmond Goodlow's initial on this document. Click on Sandra, grab her initial, drag, and place. So what I'm going to do here at stage 3 is go through all my forms, making sure that at least one task is available for all my signers, for each signer. So if those of you who are residential or selling agents or listing agents, I should say, and you get that offer, now what we can do is upload that PDF offer or that PDF purchase agreement up to the transaction. Now we can digitally sign that PDF document. All we need to do is place the initials and signatures on that PDF, indicating to my signers where they need to sign an initial. Once we're done with that, going through all the documents, making sure that everybody's got their areas placed, we can now hit send, and now within the first 30 seconds, the first signer gets an email where they can now begin to sign the documents. And that's regardless of its DocuSign or Digital Link. Okay? Are there any questions on this? I hope I went over a lot of the simple basic information to get things started and maybe even introduced you to a few extra forms. Well, if there are no other questions, I want to thank everyone for attending today's webinar. Let me give you my information again, and just in case you need to get in touch with me, you can reach me anytime at tony@ocar.org. That's TONY@OCAR.org. Or if you want, you can always feel free to give me a phone call at 949-586-6800. My extension is 104. But I will say that I do tend to read my emails way faster than being here at the board where I can pick up the phone, because I am out in the field all the time, so I'm easier reached by email than I am by phone. So please, please, please feel free to email me with any and all questions. So with that said, I want to thank everyone for attending today's webinar. Everyone will get a copy of today's recording, and please, by all means, practice what we went over today, and if you have any questions, feel free to call me or email me. Okay? Hope everybody has a great day, has a great weekend, enjoy this beautiful weather, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.